If you want to see your hair go from this to this, you have clicked on the right episode. Most seniors assume thinning hair, receding hairlines, and weakened scalp density belong to aging, but the real story is very different. A large investigation supported by the Yale Hair Research Clinic, examining thousands of older American adults, found that more than 50% of persistent thinning comes from reduced follicle cycling activity rather than age itself. And that is something you can start improving right after this episode. Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where East meets West to help you age with confidence. In today's episode, Japan's oldest doctor is here to share the #1 tip he uses to help seniors reverse thinning, recession, and shedding after 60. And he is sitting right in front of me today. Doctor, what can our listeners expect to learn from this conversation?
For older adults wanting real change in their hair health, this episode brings something rare. I'll uncover the internal cue many doctors miss, along with the everyday foods that help rebuild follicle strength and support denser growth. And to those listening, please watch till the end, because this next insight is the most valuable I've learned across a lifetime of observing how the scalp ages.
I am also reading here that you're planning to share a secret home remedy that boosts the scalp and supports healthier growth, and that everyone can make it easily at home themselves.
That's right, I almost forgot. The recipe is an amazing addition to the tip I'm about to reveal, and I will give the recipe away completely free. All you have to do is comment that you completed this episode, and I will send it to you.
And offering that recipe will give so many seniors a sense of relief, because it shows the hope is not over yet. So let's dive in together. What is this recipe and the #1 solution everyone needs to hear about?
Before talking about the recipe and the #1 tip, we must begin with the quiet shifts happening beneath the scalp long before a person ever notices the first strand on the pillow. I see it often that the follicle slows because its energy supply weakens, not because the person has bad hair.
Right.
With age, the body becomes more selective with where it sends nutrients, and hair is always last in line. And this is why seniors feel their hair changing so suddenly, even though the decline has been unfolding gently for years.
That makes so much sense, and I hear that same pattern in many of the stories seniors tell me. They think the change came overnight, but the body was whispering long before the hairline moved.
Yes. And another piece we must include is how stress reshapes the scalp's behavior. When cortisol stays high for too long, the follicles shorten their growth phase because the body interprets stress as a signal to conserve energy. Then the hormones shift, circulation to the scalp becomes more shallow, and the hair that grows back is finer than the one that fell out. And you can imagine how discouraging that becomes when a person feels they are doing everything right.
It really helps to hear you break it down this way, because it brings clarity to something people often blame on fate or bad luck.
Well, let me add one more truth. Many older adults are never told that the follicle itself is still alive and responsive, even when the hair appears weak. It simply needs the right internal environment to behave like it did during the stronger years.
That's an encouraging thought, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are breathing a little easier hearing it.
Yes, because there is a specific reason the follicle becomes less responsive after 60, and once you understand it, the entire picture of thinning hair suddenly becomes solvable. The next part of our conversation will open that door.
Now, you've definitely sparked everyone's curiosity, including mine. What is this deeper reason you're pointing toward, and how does it connect to rebuilding hair from the inside?
John, when we talk about hair thinning after 60, we must start with the inside. The follicle depends on protein metabolism, iron delivery, and vitamin D activation, and all three slow as we age. Even a small drop in lysine or iron can make the follicle hesitate, shortening the growth phase before seniors ever notice the change. And when vitamin D falls, the scalp loses its stability and shedding becomes more frequent.
That tracks with what I see in older patients all the time. They feel like their hair is disappearing overnight, but the groundwork was shifting for years.
Yes, and the key here is understanding how delicately those nutrients rely on the gut. If the gut is inflamed, stressed, or absorbing unevenly, the follicles receive inconsistent fuel and the strands begin to thin from the root upward. I hear this often from seniors who say they are eating perfectly, yet their scalp does not reflect it. And when we restore those internal pathways, their hair often responds much faster than they expect.
That gives people real hope, and it helps them see the process as something they can influence, not something they're stuck with.
Exactly, and this is where the conversation shifts. For the follicle to feel safe enough to thicken again, it needs both internal nourishment and a soothing signal from the outside.
That has me curious, because you're hinting at something topical that works in a very specific way.
It's time for our secret home-made recipe that calms the scalp, boosts hydration, and improves texture within days, even before deeper nutritional changes take effect. And it is surprisingly easy to prepare at home.
I'm leaning in now. What exactly is this remedy and how do we make it ourselves?
The remedy is a simple flaxseed gel that seniors can prepare in their own kitchen. To begin, you take 4 cups of water and add half a cup of whole flax seeds into a pot. You stir them together gently and bring the mixture up to heat so the seeds can release their natural gel.
That already sounds manageable, and I like that you are starting with exact amounts so everyone can follow along without guessing.
Of course, clarity is important here. As the pot warms, you keep stirring every few moments so the seeds do not stick to the bottom or overheat, and you watch the liquid carefully. After about 2 minutes of gentle cooking, you will see the water turn into a soft gel-like consistency, and that is the signal to turn off the heat.
I can almost picture that moment on the stove when the water suddenly changes texture. For seniors watching, it helps to know exactly what to look for so they do not overcook or undercook it.
Yes, and once you see that gel form, you simply let the pot sit and cool for about 30 minutes. This resting time allows the gel to thicken slightly without becoming too stiff. When it is cool enough to handle, you pour the mixture through a clean cotton cloth or fine strainer and gently squeeze, separating the smooth flaxseed gel from the seeds. The result is a clear, slippery gel that is ready to use on the hair.
That description is so vivid I think many listeners could do it step by step, just from hearing you explain it. But of course, everyone can comment for a written recipe.
Exactly, and I will send it to anyone asking.
Okay, and what about storage?
Oh, you place the fresh gel in a glass container and keep it in the refrigerator, so it stays safe and does not spoil. If someone has long hair, the batch you just made will usually last for about 4 uses, and for short hair, it can stretch even further across the week. Each time you want to use it, you simply take out enough gel for that day and leave the rest chilled.
It feels very doable, especially because seniors can prepare it once and then use it several times. That alone removes a lot of the pressure from daily hair care routines. How do we apply it?
The key is to start with clean hair, so if you use shampoo, you do that first and rinse it out. Then you take the flaxseed gel in your hands and work it through from the scalp all the way to the tips, making sure every strand is coated, especially the dry or frizzy areas. You leave it on for at least 30 minutes, up to 1 full hour, and if your hair is long, you can place a shower cap over it while you move around the house.
I love how practical that sounds, like a quiet self-care ritual instead of a stressful treatment. And it is comforting to know that both men and women can sit with this gel on their hair and go about their evening.
After that time, you simply rinse the gel out with water, and what remains is hair that feels smoother, softer, and more controlled. Seniors often tell me that within 10 days of using this, their volume looks better in the mirror and the frizz that bothered them for years seems to settle. But I always remind them that while this calms the surface and restores confidence, the deeper change in hair density still depends on what they feed the follicle from within.
That is such an important distinction because it means this remedy can lift someone's spirits quickly while the real work quietly continues inside the body. So if the gel is our confidence boost, what should seniors focus on next to truly nourish their follicles from the inside out?
Of course, John, once the gel gives someone that first bit of visible confidence, the real transformation begins with what we feed the follicle itself. The scalp depends on steady internal nourishment far more than anything. We apply on the surface, and after 60 the body becomes very honest about what it is missing.
That makes so much sense, especially when you consider how quickly hair reflects stress or nutrition changes.
Exactly. And as we move deeper into this conversation, I want listeners to remember that follicles behave like tiny organs. They respond to blood flow, oxygen, minerals, and protein metabolism, not serums alone. When seniors restore those internal conditions, the hair often surprises them with strength they thought was gone for good.
It's comforting to know that the inside still holds that much influence. And honestly, I hear from so many older adults who feel defeated because nothing they apply on their scalp seems to work.
Yes, and that defeat is what makes this next part so important. When you understand the kind of nourishment a follicle actually responds to, the entire conversation about thinning hair becomes clearer and far more hopeful.
So, what foods are we talking about here?
Of course, John, let's start with the food that surprises people most in how quickly it supports the follicle. Grass-fed red meat and slow-cooked organ-rich stews provide the lysine, heme-iron, and natural zinc thinning hair struggles to access after 60. Together they strengthen the strand, improve scalp oxygenation, and ease the hormonal pressure behind recession. Even small servings each week often help the follicles regain steadier, more resilient growth.
I hear that from patients too. Many of them realize they had unintentionally reduced these foods for years without noticing the effect until their hair began changing.
Yes, and the shift is often subtle at first. Lysine in particular becomes essential because it supports the structure of the hair fiber and helps the body absorb iron more effectively. And when the scalp finally receives both oxygen and stable minerals again, the follicles stop feeling as though they are running on empty.
That actually explains why some people notice less shedding within weeks once those nutrients return.
Exactly. And what I want listeners to understand is that it is not about eating large portions. A modest serving of grass-fed beef or a small scoop of a mineral-rich stew can carry more nutritional value for the hair than many supplements combined. It is the precision of these nutrients, not the size of the meal, that matters most.
That really reframes how seniors think about nourishment, and it makes the process feel more achievable and grounded.
And here is the part most people never hear. When you combine these foods with one specific category that repairs the gut's communication with the scalp, the results become even stronger.
That definitely opens another door for me. If there is a way to improve that internal communication, I want to understand what foods support it and why they matter.
The next food on the list is one that quietly transforms hair from the inside by repairing the pathway every follicle depends on. I am talking about fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and kefir help restore the good bacteria that support amino acid and mineral absorption, especially the nutrients thinning hair struggles to hold on to after 60. When the gut is out of balance, The scalp often mirrors that imbalance with irritation, shedding, and slower growth. But once seniors bring these foods back into their meals, the body becomes far better at delivering what the follicles need to strengthen themselves.
I see how that connects, especially because so many older adults deal with long-term digestive issues without realizing the scalp is paying the price. It makes the idea of feeding the hair through the gut feel much more real.
Yes, and I hear this often. When the gut recovers, people suddenly notice that the scalp feels calmer and their shedding begins to steady. The absorption of lysine, iron, zinc, and even vitamin D improves, and hair finally has the raw materials to rebuild. It is a gentle form of inner cleansing that prepares the entire system for deeper repair.
That really resonates, especially the part about making the body more receptive to everything we are trying to support from the outside.
Exactly, John. And when fermented foods become a regular part of the diet, the follicle is no longer fighting against silent inflammation every day. It starts to receive nutrients with far more efficiency. This is why seniors who add these foods often see soft, steady improvements that continue month after month.
That makes me curious, because you've now shared two powerful foods. Where do we go from here? What is the next food that builds on this foundation?
The next food, John, is one I often recommend when seniors tell me their hairline is retreating faster than they expected. Pumpkin seeds and a simple cup of green tea work together to gently ease the hormonal pressure that shrinks the follicles over time. Both contain natural compounds that help soften the influence of DHT, the hormone that accelerates thinning in men and women after 60. When used consistently, they create a calmer environment around each follicle, giving the hair a better chance to stay thick and anchored.
That's fascinating, because it sounds like such a small habit, yet it carries so much weight for the scalp.
Exactly, and that is what makes it so sustainable. Even a modest handful of pumpkin seeds each day paired with green tea during a mid-morning break can support hormone balance, while the earlier foods rebuild strength from within. Seniors often tell me they feel their shedding ease gradually, the way a storm begins to settle into steady air. And once this internal pressure drops, the vitamins and minerals we've discussed can finally reach the follicles more effectively.
I can imagine how comforting that must feel for someone who has watched their hair thin year after year.
It is because this combination begins to restore confidence. The red meat provides the building blocks, the fermented foods repair the gut's ability to deliver them, and pumpkin seeds with green tea protect the follicle from shrinking. Together they create a foundation the scalp can trust, and once this foundation is in place, the timing of your nutrition becomes the final piece that ties all of it together.
I guess it is finally time for the #1 hair tip for seniors.
Yes, and like often, the key here is rhythm. Aging follicles no longer respond to occasional nutrition, they respond to a repeated signal, the same way a plant steadies when water comes at the same hour each day. What I have seen again and again is that seniors who nourish their roots at a consistent daily time create what I call the hair root clock. And once that clock is set, the thinning often slows, the shedding eases, and the scalp begins to regain a sense of stability.
That idea feels so simple, yet powerful, and I can already sense how it builds on everything you've taught so far.
Yes, and what matters most is the combination. A lysine-rich protein paired with iron-containing foods and vitamin D, taken at the same time every single day, gives the follicle a dependable message that repair can finally happen. When this rhythm joins better gut health and gentle hormonal support from those foods we discussed, the follicle stops living in fear and begins behaving like itself again. Seniors often tell me the hair feels calmer, stronger, almost as if the body remembers how to grow.
It's remarkable to think consistency could carry so much weight for aging hair. It makes me want to rethink how I time my own nutrition.
You should, John, because once that timing settles into the body, the hair stops drifting and starts anchoring again, strand by strand, week by week. And for many older adults, that small shift becomes the first time in years they feel hope when they look in the mirror.
I guess it is finally time for the #1 hair tip for seniors.
Yes, my tip is to set your hair root clock. Choose one moment every day, morning or midday, and take your lysine-rich protein, your iron, and your vitamin D together. Give your follicles the same message at the same hour, and they will answer in their own quiet, steady way. And to everyone who stayed with us until the end, comment that you completed the episode and gave it a thumbs up, and I will send you the full flaxseed recipe personally. It has helped many people feel confident again.
Oh, and watch this next video right now.
Yes, please.
We've picked this one especially for you.